We've got a man who doesn't yet know how to compare the economics of plastic and paper plates because he's still young. He still has that youthful zeal, that energy, that constantly functioning back that Dan and I no longer have in our old age. And for young people who come on the show, we like to let them introduce themselves to set the tone for their podcast episode. So now on the count of three, you will introduce yourself to the folks at home. 1, 2, 3.
Hello, everybody. My name is James Blennau. I am the host of Ice Level via the Dan K Show. First of all, I do have a functioning back. Second of all, I do
Enjoy
not
it.
understand the economics of silverware. I go shopping for my mother for graduation parties, and I'm like, "What do you need?" And I get it.
That's
But
that's a smart move. I make myself a list throughout the week to become more disciplined because then if I can pretend the list was written by someone else and I can't go off the list. But yes, we have James with us today, and we have already been featured on his podcast, Ice Level. You've seen our faces alongside his. You've heard our voice alongside his. But now we wanted to bring him on our platform so that you can be formally introduced to the young man who has created Ice Level, which will be covering D1 NCAA hockey with some D3 sprinkled in, especially as the season gets going. And we wanted to introduce you to what James is doing because it's been absolutely fantastic so far. And before long, pretty much everybody's going to know who he is. So you're going to want to get in on the ground floor with a guy like this. So, James, first of all, I want you to talk about your background and your experience because you submitted a resume that was extremely dense with relevant experience in terms of your hockey coverage. So give the folks a little background on yourself.
yeah, I attend Quinnipiac. Quinnipiac. Dan would not know how to pronounce that if this was about 20
I love
minutes
that he's
ago.
already getting on your
Nope,
case. This is
Quinnipiac.
great.
I've been pronouncing it right for decades.
Yeah, I attend Quinnipiac University. I am studying journalism with a focus in sports broadcasting. I have been producing a weekly sports news show for the past 2 years. I stepped down from that this year. I've been a beat reporter for multiple teams on the campus. I've been creating content all around the sports world. I've been watching hockey since I was like 5 years old. If this is going up on video, they'll see the Islanders flag behind me. I introduced that in my first episode. But I love this sport, especially at the college level. I tell this story all the time. When I first was committing to Quinnipiac, I was glued to the TV during that game against Michigan when Rand pulled the goalie down 5-4 and Michigan ended up going up. I was heartbroken. So if that doesn't explain enough passion for the game of hockey, then I don't know what does.
So it's really it's passion created by a small amount of sports related trauma is what that is. As with all of us, I feel on this podcast,
Yeah.
Dan and his New York Knicks, myself and the New York Giants. I mean Dan as well with the New York Giants, but it doesn't get easier. I feel like Dan.
Yeah, Dan as well with Everton. Dan as well with the New York Rangers. Dan as
You
well with
picked Everton. You didn't have to pick Everton, but
I,
you did.
Everton picked me. I ambled into a beautiful Turnmill bar in Manhattan, New York, and it was history since then. But no, I think that's how we all get shaped into this, right? And I think that's where we kind of fell in love with James here. Me meeting James honestly for the first time in person today, but learning about him through Lucas, like it's passion for the game. And if there's one thing we love at this show, man, it's trying to elevate people with the same passions we have and people who are more professional than us to get to higher professional ranks. Like one day, James is going to be our boss and we're going to be better for it. And that's the goal.
Well, James has won awards. You and I have not yet won an award. So, James, what you did win some awards at Quinnipiac, correct?
Yeah, I was actually in Q30 television. I don't mean to toot my own horn, but my freshman year, I was sports rookie of the year for the whole department. And then that year, as an associate producer on Sports Pause, we did a special episode for the national championship, and our staff ended up winning honorable mention at the College Media Awards for the Division III sports video cast. So, that might be the thing I'm most proud of is the team achievement because we all really poured our heart and soul into that episode, and we're actually going for another one this year. So,
Now, the
um,
team achievement is interesting because we always tell people that on the Dan K show, it's every piece of content that comes out is from who you see right now. It's myself and Dan, and now you, James, are included in that. You know, what is it like working with a team of people that are as passionate kind of as yourself, and what even constitutes that team environment for making a show? Because I think people maybe don't realize how many people are involved in the production of a sports show.
No, yeah, I always say it takes an army, and I've built up for this show and this brand in its young life, I've built up a sort of principle of interdependence, because without me, it wouldn't exist, but without the people that I bring in, there wouldn't be a story. And so having a team is everything because filling in the things that you can't on your own is the most important way to give people the best experience that they can have.
I love that. I mean, it resonates with us, Dan. I mean, we feel like we've put together a pretty good team the last 2 years, and they've just made all the difference for us.
Yeah, and you talk about awards. We're still waiting for a thank you from the USPHL, but I mean, I'll take that. It's just on like a little piece of paper. But no, you look at it. I just the understanding of team, I think, is something that is so important to every member, right? Like every team's got a captain, every team's got a role player, every team's got that bench guy who just brings the vibes in the locker room. Every team's got. It takes a village, right, to be successful in anything, especially in media, to create a storyline. And James, what I love about what you're saying, and I think this is a great thing for other young journalists and up and comers in this industry that I think has gone away, is your respect for your subject and the fact that your subject is just as vital to the success of your show and your content as you are, right? We're all so focused on being a brand nowadays. People, these idiots putting their name on shows where their name is the title of the show. But no, you look at, like, people are trying to build brands these days, and they're doing it in spite of the subject matter, in spite of building a great piece of content, in spite of informing their listener and giving them a reason to come back for more. And James, from your interview that I listened to with Johnny Lazarus, to your content early on and some of the stuff I've researched into what you've done, that respect for your subject matter is something that's going to set you apart and does set you apart right now, going into the future in your media career. And it's something that I think our listeners really need to pay attention to, because you are going to learn more from what James is doing than you do from anything else in this realm of sport.
Yeah, I mean, I forgot to add this onto my little outro that I put on Zoom that I'm going to end up editing in later is how I ended my first episode was I'm not an expert and neither are you, but together we're going to grow this game. And, that's what I want to do. I want to learn with the audience. I want to learn with the people that I bring on because nobody wants to listen to a guy that just yaps about everything that he knows for like 20 minutes. What people want to listen to is just like a regular guy who maybe knows something about hockey more than the average person, but is able to bring it to people who don't know about what's going on in college hockey. I mean, I've said this to myself. I don't know if I've said this to you guys, but I'm going weekly during the season. And maybe I won't have a guest on every single episode, but what I will have is an accessible way to find all the biggest stories in the college hockey world, the games of the week, the players of the week, and just condense it all into something that, the average NHL fan can understand.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's huge, right? And it's why, despite all of the all of the advances in in different technology, and especially in terms of broadcasting, morning sports talk radio is still a thing, right? Because everybody talks about these, they love being able to call in and talk to a host. And in the New York region, it's some guy from the Bronx calling in to tell some other guy that he doesn't know anything, and that guy yelling back at him for 5 minutes. But that's the part of what sports is. Sports is a community effort. You go to a game, you talk to random people, you interact with people, and the ability to present information in an accessible way is going to be super important going forward. There's a lot going on out there. There's a lot of storylines to potentially follow, and I think this is kind of the future. I know what Dan and I wanted to provide, focusing on, the junior sport and some of the younger guys, yourself, James, with the NCAA, and, hopefully all together we're going to get a chance to grow this game. And I know we've kind of talked about it a little bit, but when you and I started talking, James, we kind of talked about what was your goal with all this? Like what could Dan and I help basically you to get out of this experience? Like, what do you want? And that's kind of partially what led us to being here today. So for the folks at home, what do you want to do? What's the goal of Ice Level? Where do you want to end up professionally? Where will we be watching you someday?
I mean, I've always been drawn to producing and being behind the cameras. So what Ice Level has given me and is going to give me for the next however long I end up doing this, we'll see where this takes me. It could be one season, it could be three, it could be for all time. But as of right now, what I'm gaining out of this for myself is an experience writing and storytelling and creating an accessible environment for anybody to watch and enjoy and learn.
I love that. It sounds simple, but it is so important, right? It is essentially giving to people something that they can take and use on their own. I love it. James, thank you for taking on this role and helping us to create, this kind of co-branding here with your podcast, Ice Level, our podcast, The Dan K Show. Dan, what else you got for James?
James, I got to ask this question because as a man who spent a lot of time in New Haven, Connecticut, and in the Hampton, Connecticut area, I will always fall back on pizza in New Haven. This is a simple question. What is your go-to pizza spot in New Haven? Why is it on Worcester Street? And why is it Frank Pepe's Go?
Why is it Frank Pepe's?
It doesn't have to be
first
Frank
of
Pepe.
all,
It's different.
no,
one.
it is. It is.
Okay, go ahead.
I've been there a couple times now. I actually went one of the times I was visiting with my parents. We got it on the way home, and I was like, "This is good." Like I've never had like pizza like this. I always have a soft spot for Connecticut, and I always will. I still love New York pizza over Connecticut pizza, but give me like a Frank Pepe's coal-fired white clam pizza, and you cannot replicate that.
Mm-hmm.
100% you can't. And to the folks at home who haven't been to New Haven or the Hampton or checked out a game, Quinnipiac, by the way, said it right. They have an incredible facility. This is a facility with a basketball court, with a hockey rink, with everything in there you need to be successful at the D1 level. Do not try to walk up the mountain to the building.
No,
I
do
did
not
that.
walk up York Hill. You can take your car. There's a parking garage. There's plenty of surface parking.
My gosh, I was a college kid, and I just thought I could do it. I thought I could get up there. I was interning the women's Frozen Four for Mr. Sweeten up there and the crew in Quinnipiac. And I walked up that hill, and by the time I got there, man, I needed a change of clothes. I needed to go. I say at the department, like, what can I buy? What can I get right now? I am just sweat. But you look at it, I guess, James, when you look at the world of hockey, when you look at what we work in the junior hockey realm, the NCAA realm, the NHL realm, I guess, what would you say in hockey is the one thing in your mind that stands out the most that you think through education can either become better because we all know about it, or maybe just something you want to learn about more in hockey? What's like that big tent pole for you that you're looking at and you're going, hey, this is my number one story. It's my golden goose.
I mean, everybody always looks at like the ESPN hockey posts, and like there's always like the NBA fans that are like, whoa, hockey is like really cool. And like those, maybe not those people exactly, but the people who have always been hockey curious or college hockey curious, that's the way that we're going to grow, because God knows the NCAA is not going to do anything about it. And we just had a whole episode talking about it. So it's up to us to be the storytellers and the bridges between, this odd realm that's like college football crossed with the NHL, basically, which was what I thought of when I first walked into my first college hockey game at Penn State at Pagula Ice Arena. I was mesmerized, but I was fascinated with it.
Yeah, and you look at Pagula. We talked about in the last podcast, like the story of what a little bit of investment can do, right? A little bit of money can do for an organization, for a school. to help grow this game and grow this sport. Lucas, I'm excited, man. I think folks are going to learn a lot from James. I think this is going to be something. If you're at home, if you enjoy watching us, if you enjoy listening to us, like this is going to be us times like the best investigative journalists that you could put together with us, right? This is
I
this
only
is
got a B plus in news reporting.
no, don't
Lucas, fix that in post. A plus.
James, A plus. James,
We
what
don't
I
even
will
give out
tell
A
you,
pluses.
I tell no one my grades in college, okay? I have 3 degrees, James, and I never took a math class. And I don't tell employers that. I don't tell people that, but I do brag about it here on the Dan K Show. Don't do what I did, folks. Take math classes. You'll need it at some point, or else you're going to have to give Lucas numbers all the time and ask him to do your taxes for you.
The amount of speed math I'm forced to do on the show is outrageous. But I'm happy to do it, especially if it ends up growing the game of hockey. It frees up Dan's brain to do more important things, like how to grow the game of hockey. But yeah, this is going to be good. I am very excited to see what the season brings, as James said.
Yeah,
Throughout
before
the
we
season,
sign off and before you guys cut that out.
he's got one. He's already cutting me off too. He's learning how to be a host.
Hold on.
I like
Let the
this.
record show
Mhm.
that one B plus was the only B plus I have ever gotten in my entire time. Followed that up with straight A's this semester.
There you go.
And I also got an A in my digital journalism class, which is
Ooh.
probably what I specialize in at this point. So,
Well, now he's just bragging, Lucas.
Now
And,
he's-
yeah.
you got to be humble. Humility is so important.
I had to, back up
It's-
why I got a B plus.
He's busy. He's a busy guy. He's got his own show now. He doesn't
but
have
also
time
investigative journalism. Investigative journalism. I mean, it's a tough subject, right? It's tough subject matter. You could pick the wrong subject on a test or on a project, and just the wrong subject alone doesn't allow you enough avenues to really get into. Folks, there's so much I can get in. As somebody who has been an educator now at this point in my career, I could really dig into this, but I
Dr.
won't.
Dane.
Stay away from it. I'll stay away
Don't.
from battling for James here and why he might have got a B
An
plus.
educator.
My guess is I could have argued for you, James, and you would have got an A. My guess is this young man deserved an A. Get me off the air, James. Send us your professor's info. We'll get you that A back.
He's
Fix that
not
trip.
even at Quinnipiac anymore, so I don't even know if
Oh,
it's
We will investigative journalist why you got
Even better.
a B plus.
It's easier to fight
No,
a legal
I
case
love
out
I
of
love
town.
my professor. Shout out Molly Anthony, who's now the head of journalism at the University of Rhode Island. We used to always talk about the Steelers.
There we go.
I'm learning. I'm still a student, and that's the important thing is I am learning how to be a storyteller right now.
It's your ABC. Always be learning. And with that, as Dan's brain short circuits a bit,
Oh.
we're gonna end at least this section. We're gonna have more for you in the back end of this podcast. Later on, Lucas will go in and change this outro to reflect the subject matter of the back half of this podcast. But for now, we want to thank James for coming on to the show. Once the season starts, you'll be able to see weekly updates from James on his Ice Level podcast. You're going to see a mix of video features, audio features, written features. The guy is a 5-tool journalist, and we are going to put him out on the field like Tom Thibodeau at this point. He is going to be going 48 minutes a game. It's going to be amazing. James, why don't you give us a sign off as if you were on Ice Level? Let the people know how you're going to be closing these podcasts.
As if I was on Ice Level.
Yep.
All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Thank you guys to Lucas and Dan for having me on your show. And as always, I'm not an expert, neither are you, but together we're going to grow this game, and we will see you next time.